Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me back this year, 2021. Dr. Judy, WTF, and really very happy to be back here after a long hiatus, the holidays, and it's been a tough 2020, and I hope that we're heading into some brighter light in 2021, and let's make it so. And you know that this is a call-in show, and for those of you who have never called in, one of my fans made a good point. I always ask people, what's your name? Where are you from? And maybe that discourages people. So if I say that, you could just use an alias and could say whatever you want. I'm just always curious where people are from mainly, and please do feel free to use another name. So tonight's episode is about the effects of living with a narcissist on your mind, body, and soul. And I decided to start the year out with this episode because at a time when we're in the middle of a pandemic and a lot of changes nationally and internationally, it's so important to be connected. It's so important to be around people who are loving and nurturing and healing, and people who have the ability to have empathy. And so when you're living with a narcissist, of course, that all goes out the window. So tonight, I want to encourage people to please call in, share your stories. I'm going to share some case studies, and I'll just call them case number so and so and such, obviously to preserve the anonymity of the people. And I can say that living with narcissists, having friends as narcissists, having associates as narcissists, or anyone that is in the inner circle of a person's life, if they are exhibiting traits of lack of empathy, inability to own their own stuff, if they're trying to gaslight you, if they're trying to take your light, if they're trying to take energy from you, if they're demeaning, devaluing, and destroying you, if they are discarding you, then it's bound to have a profound effect, not only in the short term, but in the long term period. So tonight I want to talk about the effects of narcissists on the mind. Let's start with the mind. And all of you, many of you, are familiar with the term gaslighting. So what is gaslighting? It's making another person crazy. So one of the mind tricks that narcissists play is by making you think that something is other than what it is. So they might say something like, I wasn't there when that happened. Well, what do you mean you weren't there when it happened? I saw that you were there. No, you're just imagining things. So these scenario after scenario, you start to doubt yourself. And a lot of people seeking therapy are, of course, here because they think they're going crazy. And when you're in the environment of a narcissist, you will find that you may feel like you're going crazy. And by the way, this is a call-in show, everybody. So please call in. And that number is 323-524-2599. And I invite you to please share your story. And I'm going to start by sharing a few case studies. So I'll just call it case number 3842. A gentleman comes into therapy, and this is a case where mother-in-law is a narcissist. And what happens in this case is the person is from a culture where it is appropriate to help the family and create a home environment for the in-law and so on. So at the expense of himself, he moves in somebody who is highly toxic. And what happens is that the whole family starts to splinter. So nobody really knows what's going on behind the scene. And behind the scene is a lot of verbal abuse and a lot of demeaning, devaluing, destroying. And everybody thinks that the mother-in-law is the sweetest little lady, except for my patient, of course. And so what happens is he starts to doubt himself. He starts to feel shame and guilt over this, and then it splinters into the effects of this on his children and his wife and so on. And so one of the things that happens is commonly um, the narcissistic seed implanted in the family starts to create disconnect, not only between that particular person and the other, but between other members of the family. And so now we've got triangulation, and we've got flying monkeys that purport to say that the person really is such a wonderful person, and what's wrong with you, and why are you not liking this person. And so what I also find happening is that this takes a very, very big hit on a person's body as well. So I'll just refer to case number 5,742. And what this particular person brought to the table is that she is in the process of divorcing a narcissist. And this particular person is so run down by this process in her life that you can tell by her eyes, by her face, by her body pain, that she's not taking this well at all. And one of the problems when divorcing a narcissist is that you are going to the person is going to try to control and manipulate and use every single tactic to bring you down. And so the fear is induced and the threats come flying, and the person feels very, very vulnerable. And when a person is having to be in a position of divorcing a narcissist, they need to really have a good therapist by their side. They really, really need to have a good attorney by their side. And otherwise, there's just too much vulnerability and the person takes a real hit. So please call in and share your story. I want to hear from you. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there living with mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, partners, even your own children, working with narcissists, working for narcissists. What's it like living with a narcissist? It's miserable and it's painful. Was that a call? I couldn't tell.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, thanks. And it's painful. It's physically painful. And so we all know that the mind and the body are interconnected. So what do I mean by painful? Well, many people who lived with who have very weak boundaries and have allowed the narcissist into his or her life is now in a very, very horrible, vulnerable spot. And I refer to this situation as that their boundaries or their defense mechanisms are not able to protect from this toxicity. So what happens is that the narcissist is able to infiltrate into the person's fiber of their being, into their mind, into their body, into their soul, and wreak havoc. And very many times I will hear in my room from people that they're suffering from headaches and atrocious backaches and neck aches, and I have people reporting fibromyalgia like symptoms, and a lot of other somatic aches and pains. And remember that when we're vulnerable, when we allow poison to penetrate us, emotional poison, then we are going to not only be affected mentally, emotionally, our bodies are going to hurt as well. So let's look at the mind map and mind map this a little bit deeper so that people can understand the effects of living with a narcissist. So panel 1, 2, 3 represent the past and how we've been encoded with the past. And panel 4, 5, 6 is the chaos of the damages of childhood and the defenses we erect around the damages and the eventual breakdowns that happen to us as a result of the damages. And panel 7, 8, 9 is where we shift out of all that mess and we shift into self-knowledge, better boundaries, better vetting of people, and better ability to recode into health and select people and places and things that are going to enhance our well-being and eventually be the cause of better outcome of our life. So if we are to mind map this process of living with the narcissist, let's start with panel 1, wounds of childhood. And when we're wounded in our childhood, we get shadowed over. So you can see the light in the background, and then you can see all these speckles of darkness shadowing over what I refer to as the big I, or the healthy I, or the self-actualized potential. And these shadows represent childhood wounds such as physical abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, physical neglect or emotional neglect. And then there is another form of abuse of smothering and controlling. And of course, there's sexual abuse. So when we have been shadowed over, when we have been disconnected from our primary caregiver, when we are really compromised in our first developmental years of life, then we are primed to be set up to allow in toxic material, such as relationships that are not going to be nurturing, that are not going to be supportive, and that are actually going to infiltrate into the fiber of our being and not allow us to breathe, to feel nurtured, to be supportive. So when you're living with a person who displays narcissistic traits or is heavy on the other end of the spectrum and actually suffers from narcissistic personality disorder, then those childhood wounds will absolutely get re-triggered in the here and now. And I do want to hear your story. It's much more interesting when I have people to call in, and we could talk about it and apply the mind map to you. And I want to also remind my audience that we do have a program for recovering from narcissistic abuse, and it's titled The Mind Map Journey to Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And this particular program comes with a video that's hosted by our wonderful life coach, it's Esteem, and then you can go through this 10-session process and really, really get down to the injuries, how you've been injured, how it impacted you, how it became encoded into the fiber of your being, and why you're in the position you're in now, and then start to heal that so that you can morph out. So for those of you who are deep in it and are hurting, please know that you don't have to be in it. There's a way to remove yourself, detox, and literally detox the poisons and morph out of this mess. So you can see that these childhood wounds are really the grooming. It's the setup. So parents set the bar. So if the bar is low, if the bar is abusive, if there's a human disconnect between mother and infant, or father and infant, or family and infant, then the baby is going to not have all of these psychological ingredients that are going to be nourishing to the psyche. And so that's the setup for accepting less than.
We have a call.
Oh, great. Okay. Hi, you are on the couch. Happy New Year. And
Happy New Year. How you doing?
Good, thank you. You could use your anonymous, your a fake name or a real name, whatever you choose. Okay.
It's okay. Okay, I'll use a fake name. I don't know, Jonathan.
Okay. Hi, Jonathan. And where are you calling from? It's always very interesting.
Spokane, Washington.
All right. Welcome to the show. And have we spoken before?
No.
Okay. So what prompted the phone call?
Oh, I've been a follower of your show on YouTube for a few years now. So I just noticed no one was calling in, so I thought I'd give you a call and just let you know my story.
Okay.
See what you think.
I want to know your story. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I grew up, I think, with a narcissistic mother. I've also been told that she was it BPD? Not bipolar, but what's the other one? Borderline. Yeah.
Okay. Emotional.
So essentially,
Yeah.
very controlling. Invasions of privacy. There were no boundaries. She would quite often invade my privacy. Also, if my desires in life weren't in exact alignment with what she thought they were, my opinion didn't matter.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, gotcha. Wow. All right. And so how did that affect let's talk about how it affected your mind.
Well, I think it overall, I had tremendous self-doubt, lack of confidence, questioning myself. I was always questioning my own judgment, what I thought was right or wrong, because she would question what I thought was right or wrong constantly. And if it wasn't in alignment with what she thought was right, then it was wrong. And it just didn't matter. I knew she loved me. I'm not saying she was a completely evil person, because I knew she really did love me. But it was the way she expressed that love, and it was very conditional.
So really reinforced you for anything that was relevant to her or reinforcing to her. You know that it doesn't really allow you to develop your sense of self, right? Because now you're groomed to please her and go along with whatever she wants you to be. And so where do you think you're at with that? And just in terms of separating, individuating, being who and what you want to be, doing what you want in life?
Well, even though she's been dead for a number of years now, that the old tapes are still playing. I think it's so ingrained in me now. Yeah. Thankfully, I've been able to seek out a therapist, and that's helped me first of all identify that was the issue, because I think I was just attracting relationships that were a lot like her. Not everyone, but for the most part. Just dating women that were a lot like her, and I just couldn't figure out how to. I just couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong, and so therapy helped me out a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So the awareness of seeing the pattern that you were picking women, very similar.
Yeah.
And what were some of those qualities that you noticed in these women?
I think the manipulation. A lot of I've become very familiar with the terminology. So as far as like love bombing, in the initial part of the relationship, there would be a lot of love bombing, and everything was perfect for a number of weeks. And then slowly but surely, they would start to, find things that were wrong with me, and it would begin to snowball where I couldn't do anything right. That would be an extreme case. Other cases would be more covert. I married a woman who I'm convinced was a covert narcissist. I just couldn't identify while we were married what the problem was. Okay. So, yeah, I think the love bombing, falling in love with them, and then having them gradually pull away while I was trying to chase the feeling that we had in the beginning. And it was a constant losing battle. And then I also had to deal with the flying monkeys aspect of it at or near the end of the relationship. She would be planting seeds in people that we know and mutual friends about how I was, evil and everything was my fault.
Well,
that really stands out.
How did you get out of the hot mess, especially with a covert narcissist? Because they're really, really great at making you feel like there's something wrong with you. And it often takes longer to get it when that light bulb goes off, that there's something really off here. There's something really inauthentic. well, maybe I should ask you, did it take you longer to get out of the covert narcissist situation than the more overt people that you came across?
Yes. I guess the most glaring covert narcissist that I date, or actually was married to, my only marriage was to a covert narcissist. We share one child together. So it was, I still have to deal with her, although we don't speak very often. I have to deal with the fallout via my daughter. That's probably going to, go on the rest of my life, unfortunately. And so, yeah, I mean, I could cry you a river, but I mean, it's just one of those things that, I think ultimately, as a result of being the product of a narcissist and also having a stepdad that was a narcissist. So I kind of had it from both sides. Yes. But what I'm just thankful that I was able to figure it out in time, that I didn't, go the rest of my life wondering, scratching my head, hey, what's going on here? So I've drastically improved my outlook. And like you said, I became a lot more self-aware.
Right.
My emotional intelligence has gone way up. Like I said, I have very low self-confidence. My confidence has gone way up. So, I mean, there's definitely still some aspects of it that will surface from time to time, but I think for the most part, I'm winning the battle.
And when we were talking about how these thoughts and feelings live inside of you, even though your mother's no longer alive, mothers have a way of getting in there and making us crazy. I call them psychovirus. Okay, they infiltrate and they stay in the head and they reverberate into what creates the what the Freud, because it's just over and over again. And so now that you're aware, you've been listening to YouTubes and you've been going to therapy, do you feel that your mother's presence in your head is more silenced, more complete?
I think so. I at least it's at a level that I can identify where things went wrong. Okay. I one thing I'm working on right now is that I do tend to dwell on the past a lot. So I'll look back at my childhood. I'll look back at my adolescence, my 20s and 30s, and I'll just replay situations. I'm a little bit hard on myself in that sense, because I try to evaluate where things went wrong and what I could have done better. That's I think where I tend to struggle sometimes. Even though you can't change the past, sometimes I do get stuck in the past, and I don't know if that's a byproduct of having been brought up by a narcissist, or who knows. But that's something I'm dealing with right now, is trying to get out of the past and being more in the present.
Do you have a copy of my book, of the PDF of
Yes.
You do? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read it.
Mm-hmm. I've read it. Okay. So, in terms of completing the past, it's a process, and a lot of it is about reprocessing old emotional pain so that it no longer lives in the here and now. And much of the processing it requires what I call a truth conversation between the therapist and the patient. And this truth conversation is an opportunity to bring up all the unfinished business, all the anger, all the resentment, all the betrayal, all of it, so that it's out there and no longer imploding in you or projecting onto other people. I don't know if you've done this work in your therapy, or if this work is still yet to be done. It's just a really important part of it, because then it's just still lingering there. And what do people do with lingering pain? They turn it against themselves, or they fill the hole in the soul with substances or medication or whatever they do. And that's why it's so important to reprocess this old stuff so that it becomes complete. What comes to mind is an experiment that was done, I believe it was at UCLA, by a woman by the name of Bluma Zygarnik. And they named a term after her called the Zeigarnik effect. And what the experiment was about was looking at closure versus lack of closure. And so she took two groups of students and she gave them the same nonsense tasks and they were working on it. And then in one group, she interrupted the tasks. In another group, she let them finish the tasks. And then a month later, she called everybody back to see who remembered the tasks. And guess who remembered the tasks?
The ones that finished the task?
No, actually the opposite. The ones that didn't finish the task. So there was her proof of her theory that things that are incomplete stand out in the psyche. So do you remember do you remember the piece of mail that you already mailed, or do you remember the piece of mail that you have to mail? Do you remember the phone calls that you made, or do you remember the phone calls that you didn't have a chance to get to?
Yeah, good point.
See that? So that's why it's so important to finish the psychological business. And if it's not finished, it lives. And that's why I call the show Dr. Judy WTF, because I was very, very inspired by Freud, the repetition principle, and his genius way of seeing that these things just keep spinning and spinning and redirecting and projecting and get sucked down. And so that's why, particularly when we are vulnerable, when we're more empathic, when we tend toward codependency, when we tend toward self-blame and shame, we're then more the imploders, okay? We're the imploders. And through therapy, you can actually create more of a catharsis outward, literally vomiting up the psychological poison for the purpose of cleaning it out. So I'm inviting you to do it. If you want to do it with one of the people on staff, you're more than welcome to call and set that up. And for people who are listening, you do not have to implode. You don't have to explode. You could be doing a lot of unloading, and this unloading literally closes the file so it doesn't keep spinning around. So just real quickly, what happened to your body? How did your body take a hit when you were in these situations, whether they were relationships or the marriage or living with your mother? What did you feel internally?
Well, anxiety, trouble sleeping. I never turned to drugs or alcohol or anything like that. I've been lucky, I've always been in shape, taking good care of myself in that regard. So the gym has been kind of my outlet. Yeah. But as far as, it would manifest itself in just anxiety, tensing up, sweating. I would start to sweat profusely if I was in, let's say, any kind of like an interview type situation or public speaking. I would feel like the world is watching me, and I just feel this immense pressure. I just know that's probably how it would affect me physically the worst. And it was so embarrassing. Yeah. Just you can imagine, just stage fright to the 10th degree. And thankfully, I think I've moved on from that. I've just gotten, a different perspective on how I see myself and how others perceive me, because the way I was perceiving others perceiving me was not at all the way that they were seeing me. And
I definitely identify with that. I had horrible stage fright when I was younger, to the point where I couldn't even read a sentence in front of a class. I'd swallow every word. It was such a traumatic experience. And maybe I should do a show on stage fright and share a little more about how I overcame it. I did something pretty drastic, but now that I know more, and I know more about core beliefs, what was popping up was my father calling me stupid. And so every time I got in front of somebody, oh, you're stupid. And now I could see that was a core belief that was ingrained in me. And the better we can identify it, not with it, the quicker we could free ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny you mention it, that just calling into your show kind of raised my anxiety to the point where I found myself, if I began to speak for more than like 3 or 4 sentences,
Yeah.
I would start to lose my breath.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that feeling.
Yeah.
To where I can't breathe. It's like, oh my God, I can't breathe.
I know.
I'm experiencing it tonight. So it's, I still got some work to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the courage to call in. I really appreciate it, because as you know, I'd rather talk to a person on my show than talk to a lot of people. It's just more fun and interesting for me, and I think very enlightening for the audience when people share their stories. So I appreciate you doing that, and for everything that you've done for yourself, the working out and taking care of yourself and not giving up and seeking therapy. And are you currently in a relationship?
Yes, I am. And with a fantastic woman. Yeah, she's fantastic.
Well worth it. Well worth it.
Yeah. Yep. It's fantastic. I really appreciate all your work too. And thanks for taking my call.
Okay. My pleasure. Good night. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So this is such an important topic, and when people step into my office, I can literally see the effects of narcissistic abuse on their physicality. And often what shows up is a look in their eyes, a dark look, a drained look, a body posture of being slumped over, and they're not shining. And why is this so? Because what happens in this narcissistic dynamic, if we can put up panel 7 for a minute, I can show you metaphorically in the panel. If you see all those orbs, they're supposed to represent, let's say, your mind, body, soul, or supposed to represent people that come together with you and give you light. In the case of a narcissistic dynamic, when you're living with a narcissist, then what happens is they're sucking the living daylights out of your energy. And so instead of synergy, you get the vampire effect. And when you get that vampire effect, what happens is that you can get tired and you can feel unmotivated and you feel less than, and you start to question, when is it ever going to be enough that you give these people, where they turn around and finally acknowledge you and appreciate you. And this is where, if you've been groomed to be in that state, then you'll just keep giving and giving and giving until you run out of emotional battery and run yourself down. And then the sickness comes in, and the chronicity of it. Is that a word? I think it's a word, where you feel chronically depressed, chronically helpless. Martin Seligman talks about learned helplessness. And this is a situation where, starting from childhood, no matter what you do, it's never enough. No matter how you are, you're always in the service of the narcissistic parent. Instead of the parent parenting you, you find yourself parenting your parent. And this is very draining. And then when they instigate guilt and shame in you, you don't know what to do with that. And that's another population that I work with, people who are deeply ashamed and feel horrible that they don't love their own mother or their own father. And I have to say that love is earned. So when you have a parent that nurtures you and protects you and puts you as number one and does everything possible to be a mother or a father, or a person that supports your development and eventually your separation and individuation, that's the person who's earned it. And so if that person then comes back to you and starts sucking you dry and demanding and guilting that you're not doing enough, it's a very, very sad state of affairs, because many sons and daughters and so on will give and give and give at their own expense. And this is what it's like living with a narcissist, unless you wake up and start to realize and connect the dots and source the pain and start setting boundaries. I have many people who call in and say, hey, Dr. Judy, I don't know what to do. My mother is driving me sick, and she's older and she's weak, and I want to be there for her. But every time I'm there for her, I end up abandoning myself, and I end up abandoning my own family. And so what do you do with that? You've got to put boundaries, and boundaries can mean anything from light contact and sometimes no contact, and it's an individual choice. So when you feel that drain in your body, when your back and neck starts to hurt, when you feel that your fibromyalgia is acting up, when your stomach acids are churning, when you feel confused and gaslit, and you feel guilty and shameful, and you feel that you cannot do enough, you cannot please this person enough. This is what it's like when you're living with a narcissist and you yourself have not healed from the abuse. Now, usually when people start healing from the abuse, they tolerate less and less, which is an interesting thing, because oftentimes when couples come to me, I tell them to please be in therapy individually and in couples therapy. Why? Because it's important that each individual clean up their own childhood pain before approaching couples work. And when individuals come into work and they're married or in a relationship, I warn them that unless their significant other also starts to grow, that they may outgrow their partner, which is sad, because oftentimes there are children involved, and then people feel guilty to subject their children to a divorce situation. And what are they going to do if the other party is going to parent them on their own? Was that a phone call?
We do have a caller, yes.
Okay. Hi, you are on the couch. Welcome.
Hello?
Hello. Hi. Thank you for
Hi.
calling in.
Yes, thank you for taking the call.
Welcome.
I'm sorry. I'm calling in because I have been married to a narcissistic person for about 23 years,
Okay.
and it is exhausting. And lately, I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot about narcissistic abuse and all of that stuff. And I now have been putting up, tremendous boundaries.
Mhm.
I speak up. I'm acting a lot differently, and he's actually toned down on a lot of his behaviors.
You have. Okay. To a point where he's livable with?
Here's the problem. Livable, I don't know if that's really the way to describe what is possible. I have been living with it for so long that I'm just sort of there, and so I'm used to everything. There's so many rules living in our house together. He has rules about, how everything has to be done, and he discovers problems in the house. So then he gives me new rules to you have to wipe down the shower walls every time you get out of the shower, but the door has to be cracked 3/4 of the way. It's very OCD.
Okay. So can you see how control is a big thing here? Because instead of feeling powerful and whole within himself, he needs to control to feel like he can exist in this world. So power becomes the main tool over empathy and communication and creating a safe environment that's flexible and copacetic to everyone. So it's tough when you're living with a person who's really controlling. Do you guys have children together?
Yes, we have a daughter, and she is she should be at college right now. She's going to college, but she's living with us right now. So I was sort of expecting changes in the dynamic of our situation because she'd be leaving off to school, but then there was COVID. And so she's chosen to, just to be doing her schooling probably for another couple of months.
And how is she impacted by your husband?
Well, in the past, she's a successful kid. She doesn't argue. They don't get into arguments. There's not too much of that goes on. But she has seen me really break down, and she has told me in the past, you need to leave, Mom. You need to leave.
Oh.
And but lately, we've been sort of it's been, it's been peaceful, but I'm almost uncomfortable because I'm always waiting for the next issue to arise. Since he's calmed down a little bit, the rages are definitely toned down, but I just never know when that might change. It's like I'm constantly sort of on guard, and that's really depleting on the body. That's very, but I almost don't know any other way because I've been living like this for so long.
Right, the hypervigilance, right? That
yes,
that internal tension. And so have you ever said anything to him like, this is so painful, please get help because I think we can do better than this. This really is hurting me.
Yeah, we did therapy for about a year, and the therapist basically said we had a communication problem, and that he that was part of the problem, and then he did his own therapy and I did mine. I continue to do therapy. He did therapy briefly and then ended it very quickly, on his own. So the couples counseling didn't do anything for us, really.
I did. Do you know if the couples counselor ever went into childhood wounds and helped him recognize the disconnects that he probably had from his significant family members, primarily mother, father? Do you know if that?
He never revealed. No, that he never. Our couples counselor never went there, and he never revealed any of what he did in therapy with his therapist privately. Okay. So I have no idea. Look, I think the most impactful thing on him was actually a friend of his that's going through a divorce, who knows him very, very well for many years, knows my pain. And I think he communicated it to him and said, hey, if you don't do something, you're going to have a divorce like I have on my hands right now. You're not going to like it. I think that might have scared him a little bit, maybe. I'm not sure, though. I just don't know. I just know this. I'm incredibly resentful.
Yes.
I just have tremendous resentment.
Okay.
And
very hard.
I don't really know where to go from here.
I get it. It's a really hard time to leave anybody. We're isolated, and there's not a lot of communication and interaction with other people. Narcissists are, as you know, are very, very hard to treat because they tend to control the therapy. They tend to fire the therapist. They don't want to be uncovered. They'd rather stay in control of the situation. So it's really, really tough. I've had a few individuals who've specifically noted, mainly their husbands or wives noted it, and they took it very, very seriously. And when therapy is successful is when the therapist can gently go in there and go right to the childhood wounds and start with empathizing the pain that the person went through, because narcissism is a sort of an emotional numbing, right? There's apathy. There's not, like, in other words, if a person with narcissistic tendencies steps on another person's toes, they may be more concerned about retaliation over, are you okay? Did I hurt you? Okay, because you're not able to feel for the other person. So the therapy is really about waking up the pain and having the person face that really horrible isolation and disconnect, the mother-infant disconnect. But they can't empathize with you until they're empathized with first. So it's a really delicate sort of a therapeutic journey with them, because they've got to go there. Because if they don't go there and go through this pain, then they're going to be, at best, good little soldiers. They'll know what to say, they'll know what to do. Just like a good parent can parrot the behavior, but not really feel. So until you wake up the pain, you're not really waking up the feeling. And without that, then it's just what you're saying. You know, you tolerate it, you live with it, you hope that they don't blow up, you hope that they're a little nicer and learn to do appropriate things. What's the light that he brings to the table? So obviously you married him for certain reasons. So what was there, or what is there about him that brings you life for light?
Yeah, there's a million really good qualities about him, and they're and you know, you know, of course I didn't see his abusive side at first, so you know, he's incredibly competent in so many things that he does, and like I said, all of these little, you know, issues he has with control and doing everything a certain way, you know, there's always like that grain of truth that is part of those things that he, you know, wants done, even though they're over the top and they're OCD. So it's almost hard to argue with him about that. He's, you know, he's got a lot of talents. He's, you know, my lifestyle is really, you know, I'm very happy with my lifestyle. You know, I have a really great life. I just have this misery in regard to our, you know, our relationship.
Yes.
So, and if I leave the relationship, my lifestyle, of course, is going to change. And, you know, it's really a, you know, a toss up. I have to make that decision. Do I want to leave, you know, this lifestyle, but have more peace, you know, along with the nostalgia, the fact that he is my family, missing him, you know, all of that.
Right. Do you think that he would be open? He sounds like a very competent person with good qualities. Do you think he would be open, knowing that divorce happens? He's seeing it happen with his friend. His friend is already warning him that he's capable of creating pain in you, and you may not take it in the long run. Do you think that he would be open to giving it a try in another type of journey, going back to the childhood pains? Do you think he at least intellectually understand, look, you know, I've been studying this thing. I think we could do better. I understand where it's coming from. I get it. Would you be willing to go there so that you can maybe work this through and bring more emotion and empathy into our marriage and family? What do you think he'd say to something like that?
Well, that's a really nice way to approach him, and I think I could do that. There's a few other issues. I mean, the fact is that, you know, he has been legitimately abusive, manipulative, and almost like I've seen him go to the point of malignancy, like really, really, really bad. He also has a bit of an addiction problem with alcohol and pot. You know, he is often drinking and smoking pot, but he's very, very, very functional. So a lot of therapists.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just going to say it's more evidence of the hole in the soul, right? That he's trying to fill something.
Oh yeah.
And medicate the pain.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely has had some terrible. He had a pretty terrible experience, a lot of trauma, and I think that would be a really helpful. I think that's very good advice. I think to try to get him to go back to therapy on his own, maybe with him realizing that his marriage is on the line. If he doesn't, I think that would motivate him.
Right. And I don't know. Do you have a PDF copy of my book, Be the Cause?
I do not.
Yeah, please reach out. Just contact me, contact the clinic, and I'll have my assistant download it to you with all the links. Maybe you want to share it with him. And on my website, psychologicalhealingcenter.com, you can find the Peaceful Healing Dialogue. And it's a way of, you know how you said, oh, you said that so nicely. It's because when you use Peaceful Dialogue, which is a way to talk to somebody, you could say something like, hey, Henry, is this a good time to talk to you? No, it's not a good time. Well, when is a good time? How about tomorrow afternoon? Okay, tomorrow afternoon comes. Hey, Henry, is this still a good time for you? Yeah, this is fine. You know, I've been thinking about our marriage, and there's so much beauty in it. We've got this gorgeous daughter, this gorgeous lifestyle, and there's so much creativity and memories and so on. And I was thinking that there's some aspects of our marriage that would make it more and juicier and deeper and richer. And I was thinking how wonderful it would be if we brought that into our marriage. What do you think of the idea of maybe going back in cleaning some of the stuff that gets in the way of people's connections so that we could be more connected? What do you think of that idea? Let him speak. So you're not judging him, you're not criticizing him, you're not calling him a narcissist, you know, you're not that part of it, because what they need to hear is their good job and you can do better. Maybe there's something better. Maybe there's something.
Right.
I mean, for sure, I would be willing to do a last-ditched effort, or one of my team members. I always think it's best to fix it internally than leave the marriage if it's humanly possible. Of course, if people are sick and stuck, then they've got to make that decision. And then if you know, some people make the decision to stay, and then you've got to make sure that you've got a lot of nurturing friendships and other outside support systems so that you feel connected, that you have somebody to go to, and then not torture yourself by going to your husband for things that he's not really going to be very good at. You don't want to share your feelings with somebody that is going to toss them aside lightly. So if you think that you've learned something from this conversation, or pick up the PDF or the Peaceful Healing Dialogue and give it a last-ditched effort, I mean, why not? You've been married a long time, and it doesn't sound like you go anywhere, right?
Right,
yeah.
right.
Maybe it would be hard for him to open up the childhood pain. I don't know what happened to him, but you said that he had a lot of trauma. And so unfortunately, that has to be revisited, because if it's not revisited, it's just sort of squelched or medicated over or alcoholed over. And then people tend to implode. and hold it, hold it, hold it, suck it down, and then they explode, which is what you're getting.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that it's worth a chance, and if you feel that it goes nowhere, then you have time to evaluate this and see what's going to be best for you and your family. And there are no rules in life, it's not like, yeah, you should go or you should stay. It's up to the individual, whatever works for you. Okay.
Right. But I do feel that, it is every day is, it's a challenge, and it's just really tough. And I've been debating, stay or go for years, and being in that, between the two ideas, it really is, it's very crazy making, to be, undecided. So, I like, I am looking for last ditch effort type things. And I think that's a really, really good idea to propose the idea of him going to therapy, or even making it an ultimatum.
Not a therapy where you're just working on communication skills, but really a therapy that goes deep down to childhood wounds, how he reacted to them, how he encoded them, how it created the disconnect and the defenses and the breakdowns, and how it's impacting the marriage. So yes, do leave me your email, or reach out to me, and I'll be happy to download this information to you, and you could share it with your husband. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. This was very, very helpful.
Okay,
really appreciate it.
You're very, very welcome. Okay. Take care.
Thank you too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So, audience, fellow fans, I really appreciate the many years of dedication and watching and learning, and the beautiful letters that I've received, and the gorgeous acknowledgments. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. And there's nothing more pleasurable to me than healing human disconnect. And I want to wish everybody a very healthy, happy new year. Let's get through this safe and healthy. And I don't have to tell you, do what you need to do to make sure that you don't catch this horrible virus, and be responsible for yourself, for other people. And I invite you to call and call the clinic and get your free consultation and get the PDF. And you know that I have the book, and I have the Mind Map video series that I created, the 9-panel Mind Map video series, and then the one for recovering from narcissistic abuse. So whatever you need, reach out. I have people on staff who are working on a sliding scale fee basis. They're fantastic. And I just have a really wonderful staff. They're all trained in the Mind Map therapy. So I will see you next week. I'm going to try to invite some of my staff onto the show so that you can meet them. And thank you so much for tuning in. Good night, everybody.